Good morning and welcome to Brekkie with the Guy Who Sews. And I'm excited to have my very first premiere. And I have a very special guest with me today. It is Martha from Martha's Creative Life. And I would just like to have her say hi and just tell us a bit about herself and the channel real quick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Martha. Nice to see you here. I have my YouTube channel. It's called Martha's Creative Life, and I've had it for about 2 months. So I am enjoying having my own channel. It's so much fun to be able to connect with the community, with the quilting community. And I had no idea of the friendships that I would create just within 2 months. It's pretty cool. And, you've been one of my first friends.
And that's one of the unexpected things that I came across with this as well. I did it more for accountability and just to be able to share my love of quilting. But yeah, the friendships that you develop here in the community is being an unexpected blessing. And I really do appreciate everybody. So we'll go ahead, and I just thought we'd do a fun interview. So that way, because Martha's fairly new in the community, she hasn't had a lot of exposure, and I kind of was hoping to get to know her a little better and hopefully get some of you guys to check out her channel and get to learn a bit more about her as well. And so the first question I have is, what is your first quilt-related memory or experience? What got you into quilting?
So years ago, I kind of started dabbling in sewing because I took a sewing class in junior high. So I'm dating myself by telling you it was junior high, not middle school. That's been quite a few years ago now, but I had a sewing class, but we didn't do anything quilting related. And then maybe about 10 years ago, my aunt had passed away. So she had left me her Kenmore sewing machine. And so I got it and started kind of playing around with it. And of course it needed a good cleaning and got it up and running and started just making like placemats for the kitchen. And I did a Christmas one. I don't even have them anymore because I gave them away, but it was just fun just trying to play with it and dabble with it. And I didn't know anything about all the types of fabrics that are out there like now. I just went to my local craft store, saw some things that I liked, and I was like, oh, I'll try that. But my parents had given me a lot of my aunt's old fabrics too. So it gave me a chance to kind of play around on the sewing machine and see what I could come up with.
Very nice. Yeah. And I mean, I think you and I have been quilting about the same amount of time. I started in 2013. So yeah, fairly close.
Yeah.
And so how did you learn to quilt? Are you self-taught? Did someone teach you?
YouTube taught me.
I'm a graduate of YouTube at university as well. So, and I think a lot of us are, the more and more content creators I talk to, the more I hear, they learn from YouTube, and a lot have been in the last couple of years since COVID hit. It seems like, they started off with face masks and then graduated to quilts.
Yep.
What is your favorite thing about quilting?
My favorite thing about quilting is creating, the project, whatever that it is, creating it and seeing it come to life, because before you make it, it's just scraps of fabric and thread, and then you can, by either hand sewing or by machine sewing, you actually create something. And that part's very fun because I like to be creative, either like with scrapbooking, card making, being in the kitchen and cooking or baking, and quilting also.
Very nice. So you're very crafty in a lot of different ways.
I try to be.
This being a premiere, it's a little weird for me because it's pre-recorded, but if anyone in the chat has any questions for Martha or myself, please put it in the chat, and because we will be here watching, and it's going to give us a chance to answer those questions as well. And if you want to answer your own, like the questions we're asking, you're all more than welcome to do that as well. So let's see, I was going to ask you what other hobbies and interests you had outside of quilting, but you've mentioned cooking and that sort of thing as well. What else do you like to do in your free time?
Well, in my free time when I'm not working, I'm hanging out with my husband. He's my best friend. And then I have a daughter. She's in college right now. So when she is home, I get to spend time with her. So,
very nice.
Favorite people.
Yep. That's good. And then what is your quilting style? Are you traditional, modern, a mix of both, something different?
I have found that I'm more traditional, like Lori Holt's, all of her scrapbooking, or not scrapbooking, I'm sorry, her quilting line and her fabrics. That's kind of what draws me, is her type of fabric. So I would say that it's more traditional.
Okay.
I definitely love the Americana, because of my husband. He was in the military, so I like to. I have a couple projects I want to make for him. I just haven't had the time to do it yet.
Yep. I know what that's like. It's always hard to, you have so many ideas, but never enough time to get even a tenth of them done. So, but yeah, the Americana stuff is great. It's always a fun, and there's always so much of it out there to select from as well. All right. Next question is, what are your favorite quilts that you've made in the past?
My favorite quilt I made, and I don't have it anymore because it was a gift for one of my friends for her daughter for graduation, was a t-shirt quilt. So that was like the first quilt I ever made, was a t-shirt quilt. And this thing was huge. It had, I don't even know how many squares on it. So it fit a queen size bed.
Okay.
Not queen size, but a queen size. And so that was very interesting, learning how to do the whole process with a t-shirt quilt. Like I
Wow.
just jumped right in. I didn't do a regular quilt. I did a t-shirt quilt. And it took me a long time to get it done, but it was so much fun. And I learned so much during that process that I didn't know before.
Yeah, I always admire those people that go out there and, not just start with something simple for their first quilt and, succeed. I sometimes think that it's not the wisest move because, you might get halfway through it and give up. But, for those that choose something complicated and complete it as their first quilt, I mean, my hat's off to you guys for doing that, because yeah, this is actually, like, I made two of these at the start. This is my first quilt.
I have the green fabric. I
Yeah,
have it.
it was the green and the pink, and it's just a simple patchwork quilt.
Cute.
Originally, I was going to put this on the front and the back of the quilt, and this is the back that I didn't use. But that's basically what I did for my first quilt. So yeah, I wasn't nearly as brave as you. I figured I'd start nice and simple.
Well, there was plenty of times I wanted to give up, that's for sure. I've made a lot of quilt tops, and I have a couple of them that I brought so I could show you, but this was one that is actually a quilt. And the room that I sew in, it's a bedroom and my sewing room. So it's a long room, so you can kind of divide it out and have both places. And for some reason, this part of the house gets cold. And so I was using this to keep warm the other day. And it's just a quilt that, it's not very big, but I got the fabric from Joann's. It was in a jelly roll.
Okay.
And I was super proud of it because there was more pieces that you could buy. And so I made like a backing by putting pieces together. So it all matches.
That looks great. I love that. I love the colors. It's very bright without being too out there as well.
Yeah, and it matches the Fat Quarter Shop Sew sampler boxes.
It does, yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, it's very true.
It does. And then one of the other quilt tops that I made, because I guess I really love jelly rolls. Those are my favorite. And like this is, was it? But it's a small one. It's not a big one.
Right, small quilts are fun sometimes, I like to work on the smaller ones a lot myself because, it's not as much fabric to haul around at once, and it's a lot easier to quilt and bind and all that good stuff as well. So yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the smaller quilts.
And it gives you a chance to get the project done quicker too. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
sometimes, or at least in my mind, I think that I have to make this big quilt, and there's quilts that come in so many different sizes. You can even do one just as a lap quilt, or maybe it's something that you want to make and hang on the wall, like what you have on the wall. And obviously, you see, I have nothing on my wall, so I need to put some things on my wall.
Yeah.
Wall things are good too.
Yep. And I mean, I that's something I plan on doing in the near future, is changing out the one on my wall every so often. The ice cream quilt, the sweet treats one will, once it gets back from the state fair, it'll go up there for a little while, and yeah, we'll change them out maybe seasonally or something like that. Or as I complete, a smaller quilt, I can put them up there. So
That's a good idea.
yeah, gives, and then like you said, it gives you something for the wall, and you can change them out. That might be something I have to do in the near future. Show you all how to do a hanging pocket by machine, because there's not many tutorials out there for the machine. Everyone tells you, oh yeah, just get your whip stitch and do it by hand. And I'm like, yeah, that ain't happening.
That would make a great video. And that's one of the reasons why I love YouTube so much, is because that's where I learned how to do everything. And,
Oh,
I wanted to be a teacher. That was what I always wanted to do. And then I chose a completely different career path. So I kind of feel like that YouTube and my channel gives me a chance to do more of that education. And that's more of what I want to do, more than just unboxing. And I'm still starting out and learning what I can do and can't do.
Yeah, I'm very similar in that way. Like, I've always enjoyed making videos. I did that a lot as a kid, and then this gives me a chance to do that as well. I've planned with the editing and all that sort of stuff. Let's see. I've asked you what your favorite quilts are. What are you currently working on?
What I am currently working on right now is I have a couple of different ones. My sister-in-law, my bestest sister-in-law, Stephanie, I talk about her a lot on my channel. She's one of my biggest supporters, by being a loving sister-in-law, and then she likes to send me happy mail. That gives her joy.
Happy mail like all the time.
She loves it. She's like, I'm not sending you too much happy mail, am I? I'm like, no, because what she picks out for me is something that I either one, don't know about, or it's out of what I normally choose, to pick. But what I'm working on right now is the Cotton Cuts Piazza mystery quilt. And this is the first time I've ever done a mystery quilt, and I'm loving it. It is so much fun. It's so easy because the pieces already come pre-cut, and her and I both have done clue 1 and clue 2. And she's making 2 for her little ones, and I'm only making 1.
It seems like a lot of people do buy, 2, like they'll buy 2 large or 2 small, or 1 of each in different colorways, because it's so hard to pick one colorway with them. I mean, they come up with such beautiful fabrics. And so I'm glad you're having fun with that one. I'm doing the So Sweet, which was the one that started in this, I guess it was the winter. They say spring, but it started in February and it was still snowing outside. So, and I'm really enjoying that. And I'm almost at the end. We've got 2 more clues to ship. I mean, I have 4 more to make. We won't talk about that, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing that project. So I'm looking towards the finish line of mine, which will be really exciting.
It was really good that they did that, because it gives you a chance to be able to create something and feel that sense of accomplishment.
Yeah,
If you're a slow quilter like me, who takes forever to do a project, you kind of you feel like you're getting somewhere, and you're not just stuck working on 10 whips.
And it's nice not having to cut the fabric. Like, there's nights I'll come home from work and I'm like, I don't really feel like doing anything complicated, and I'll just pull that out, and 45 minutes later I'm done. So
Exactly.
it's a lot of fun. Let's see. I was going to ask about your first quilt, if you still have it, but you've already answered that question. So we'll move on to that. And I showed mine, and technically I have half of my first quilt. Let's see. What is your favorite kind of quilt block?
Jelly rolls.
Jelly rolls. Okay, that's a good answer.
Rolls, because they're so much fun. And you got the jelly roll race videos on YouTube that you can watch, and it's fun to watch them. And it's just neat because you can't make 2 of the same. You have to really think about it if you want to make them both the same, but you have so many different possibilities with a jelly roll. And it gives you a good way to see the collection that the jelly roll is from, because you get a lot of the fabrics in it.
Yeah, that's something like I've only ever used 1 jelly roll, and I ended up cutting it up into 5.5-inch rectangles because I used it for a temperature quilt.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, I figured it was a good way for me to start. Yeah, it was 42 different solids from Kona, and I just bought the jelly rolls so I could have the 42 different colors if I happened to buy 42 quarter yards. They
Love
got me
it.
on that, but that's the only time I've ever used a jelly roll. But I know a lot of people love them, and yeah, I think it's great for the reasons you mentioned, especially because like you get the whole collection.
Hmm. And I think this one, because this one was a jelly roll, and I did the same thing. You said you cut it into 5. So this one's probably almost maybe 6. So I
Yeah,
kind of did the same thing you did.
yeah. No, it's neat how you can, you get your jelly roll or your charm pack or that sort of thing there, and you can do so many different things with it. Yeah, I think it's great. So, I mean, because I go back to when I was on Becca's Live, what was it, March, I think it was. We were all told to get a charm pack and up to 2 yards of fabric, and there was 7 of us, and we all did something totally different. And it's just, including Ian, that used like supersized charm packs.
I love it.
Yeah, he
That's
brought a
when
layer
you
cake
really
to
show
the
your
party.
creativity.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see what is next. Who are your favorite fabric designers or collections, if you have any?
Well, I love Kimberly from the Fat Quarter Shop. I love Lori Holtz. I think those are my 2 favorite.
Okay.
Um, they were kind of my first 2 that I learned about in the quilting world.
Yeah,
and
and
their and their fabrics and their tutorials and everything, it kind of speaks to me.
that's good. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's important that you gravitate towards stuff that you either started with or that you has the aesthetic that you like. Is that a more like a floral? I'm not super familiar with either one, unfortunately, but are more florals or
Yeah, hers are more floral, and she's got Lori has the new book. It's called Scrappiness is Happiness. I'm looking at it on
uh,
my desk.
yeah,
But
I've seen
that was one of
advertised, and I'm very interested in getting that.
yeah, it's a cute, cute book. It's got lots of great, can't show you, but
Yeah,
but definitely check it out on there. I don't know. I would assume that they still have it available to buy, but it was a
there's a
really
on that
investment.
for quite some time. Because like I know Donna from Handmade by Ying was talking about it a couple of months ago, and I just think it's a neat idea because we all have so many scraps. So
Yeah.
it's from what I saw on the back cover, it had quite on the website. It had quite a few good ideas. So I may have to go out and get a copy of myself in the near future when I think about it.
Definitely.
Okay, we've already described the sewing area. Are there any new techniques that you would like to learn within quilting, like collage, FMQ, free motion quilting, paper piecing?
Paper piecing. I have some paper piecing. It's in a little book, but I haven't done anything with it yet. So I think that intrigues me. I'm like, how do you do that? So I've been watching you and Beth work on some, but I just haven't pulled it out myself to try it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is Beth has an excellent tutorial. She got me started. I think she explained it so well. Like even if you know nothing about FPP, by the time you finish watching her tutorial, you'll have a much better idea because she kind of explains it to you. And then I think Yvette Renee, I've heard also has a very, very good following, and there's also a very good teacher as well. So that might be 2 channels you want to check out if you're at all interested in FPP. I know the basics. I don't think I should be the one teaching you because there's far better people out there. I mean, I'll teach traditional t-shirt quilts, that sort of thing all day long. But yeah, FPP is, I think, teaching wise, is best left for someone that knows a little more than I do.
Thank goodness we all have different talents and we're not all the same. That way we can all teach something that our niche, what we know.
Yeah, and it's good that way because you don't want 7,000 people teaching one thing. You can only watch but so many videos on that. So it's good that we all have our own little corner. And then, what motivated you to start your YouTube channel?
how I learned how to quilt was by YouTube. And I would watch these, content creators, and I'm like, I'm so thankful for them. There's so many out there that I'm thankful for. And I was like, I love to teach. I can do that. I wonder if I can do that. Nah. And then I just finally decided, I talked to Stephanie, I talked to my husband, and both of them were, supported me. They said, if you want to do it, go for it. Why not? And so I thought, well, I'm having a special birthday this year. Why not? Why not do something fun and do something out of the norm of what I do? So that's why I decided to do it. And, it was hard making that first video.
Yeah. So hard. I mean, the first one is always the toughest. I remember mine, and if you go back and watch my first video, you could probably see the fear in my eyes.
You could probably hear it in my voice too, and of course the lighting wasn't as good. It's still not great what I'd like it to be, but that's what we do, is we learn and we build on.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we're always learning, and anytime that you aren't learning, then you're falling backwards. So I think you've done a wonderful job so far. And if you haven't checked out Martha's videos so far, please do so. She's I find she has a great voice in front of the camera, and I think she's got to do a lot of great things as time goes on. Like she said, she's learning, and hasn't got everything figured out. But then again, neither do I. Some people might, but definitely not me. But definitely check it out, and if you like it, like her videos, please consider subscribing and liking the videos, because it means the world to us when you guys do that. It's such a simple action as a viewer, but it means the world to a content creator. All right, so let's see what's next. We've already talked about that. What are your long-term goals in quilting and your YouTube channel and so forth?
My long-term goals is, when I retire from my job, I want to be able to quilt. And that's what I want to do when I retire, is quilt. I want to make the Americana things that I want to do for my husband to honor him for his military service. So those are some that I really want to do. And I just need to buckle down and make the time and start making them. But right now I'm working on, I do have 2 cotton cut mystery quilts going on. One is the one that I picked out, and it's the small. And then my husband's like, well, what are you doing? I want to pick one. So he could pick a completely different colorway in purple, my favorite color. And we're going to actually put it on our bed when I'm done. So that's going to be the large one. So I'm super excited about that, because he's so supportive, and he's like, get this done. We can get it done.
That's great. I love that. It's always nice when the spouse or the significant other, supports you and does that sort of thing there. My wife, Amanda, she's wonderful when she goes to the store with me, the fabric store. Sometimes I like leaving her at home because I save money. But she has such a wonderful eye for fabric. Like, she'll pick out something that I'll overlook, but it ends up being the perfect choice.
Yeah.
So
Like, I was watching one of her videos this morning of her knitting, and she had made some socks, and I was looking at the colors, and I'm like, oh, those are really pretty colors. I like that.
Yeah, she's like me. She gravitates towards those bright colors as well, which is really nice. So we have a very similar aesthetic in our chosen crafts. And then speaking of shopping for fabric, where do you normally shop for fabric? Do you go to your local quilt shop? Do you shop online? Do you hit up Joann's?
Well, when I first started quilting, all I had was Joann's. That was my store. I didn't really, when you're first starting out, you don't really know where to go. And so you just start out where you see fabric. And so I went to Joann's, and that's where I found the fabric to make this one, and it's held up extremely well. And then as I got further along and learned that, hey, there's places online that you can buy fabric. And when I first started, where we were living, I didn't have a local quilt store that I could go to. because it was a little bit further away. And
Right.
then when we moved last year, there's one kind of like 30 minutes away, and it's my favorite.
Yeah.
I love going in there, and the people who work there are just so sweet. And the first time we went in there, we had bought some fabric, and I had never seen fabric being ripped before. When she was taking it off the bolt, and I was like, "Ah!" I screamed, and not like really loud, but I was like, "Ah!" And she just started laughing, and she goes, "Have you not seen this before?" I'm like, "No, what are you doing to the fabric?" And so she explained it to me. So
Yeah.
that's my favorite store, but I love the Fat Quarter Shop. I love Missouri Star. Love their channel. They have a great customer service like Fat Quarter Shop does. And then Donna Jordan also.
Yeah.
I used to buy from them. The Joanne here is too far away.
Yeah, for me, it's my Joann's is about 30 minutes away. My local quilt shop's about 45. So it depends on what I want.
Yeah.
You know, I still use Joanne. I find their stuff is good. I mean, for what I need it for, I don't, you know, I know some people say it's not any good, but and I'm not going to get into that argument with people. I mean, it has its purpose. I mean, I do like getting the quality, you know, some of the better quality fabric when I can, but sometimes Joanne does the job for me. So it just all depends on what I want. And then yeah, I shop online as well. It all depends. But a lot of times when I want fabric, I want to be able to go and touch it and see it, and I want it now, not wait, you know, 4 or 5 days for it. I'm a little impatient.
I agree.
Okay, so what is your least favorite part of the quilting process?
um, Well, it was until recently the binding. I don't really enjoy putting the binding on. I have a hard time, just, you get experienced and you get better at it, but just trying to make sure that it's straight and even on both sides. But working on the Cotton Cuts mystery quilt, I have found that having a bias on sewing on a bias and then trying to put another piece of fabric to it, they're not the same size. So I would say that having to sew with fabric that has a bias is not my favorite.
And see, and until you mentioned that the other day on your channel, I didn't even realize it was on a bias. I mean, I just thought it was, I didn't notice anything different. So, but I'm also using a batik line, so it may be different for your line. So
Love batiks like my sister-in-law does. She loves batiks, and we were talking about it. She goes, "Martha, that's because it's cut on the bias," and I'm like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." Because I don't know everything, and that's what I love about the channel is I'm hoping that my, viewers can learn and grow with me, because we all start somewhere, and maybe someone else who, has is just starting out, that they're not alone.
oh, absolutely. And I mean, even if you've been sewing for years, like, you know, myself, I mean, I'm learning stuff all the time. Like you said, I didn't know that the cotton cut stuff was on a bias. I was like, you know, so,
Yeah.
you know, I learn new stuff every day. So, you know, and it's good that we can learn together. And I think it's good that we can all, you know, show that we're not perfect too. I mean, as content creators. And I talk about that a lot. And I won't get into it again because I'm probably bored everybody to tears with that subject. What are some of your favorite notions or tools?
My favorite notion is the diagonal seam tape. That's my hack that I want to make sure I share. I put it on where the quarter seam is on my sewing machine, and that way I can keep my fabric and do a better quarter seam allowance. The diagonal,
Gotcha.
it works really well.
Okay. I have the foot that has like the little thing that sticks out.
Mhm.
Um, I find that thing invaluable. That's probably one of the main reasons I still use my brother machine for all the piecing, because I
Yeah.
don't have a guide on the Benina. I mean, I could probably go out and buy one, but I don't want to spend $100 and some on a foot. So when I have a perfectly good machine that works.
Yeah. And this is my other piece that I really like. Hello, are you there? Hello. It reminds me of a phone. I crack up laughing every time I see that.
It's like
But
that.
This has saved my fingers multiple times. I put it on my rulers because the last time I cut my finger, it was pretty bad. I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything, but it took forever for it to heal up. And this helps protect my fingers and keeps them away from the rotary cutter.
I've thankfully touched wood. I haven't cut my finger yet, but I actually dropped my rotary cutter on my foot the other week.
Oh no, are you okay?
I mean, it didn't bleed as much as I thought it was going to, but yeah, like you said, it takes quite a while for it to heal. So yeah,
I'm sorry about that hurt.
it didn't really hurt that bad. It was interesting. Like I felt it like hit, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And it didn't really bleed much at all. I've got a high platelet count, thankfully, so that probably helped. So yeah, use your guards on your rotary cutters, and it's not just for your hands.
Yes.
And then everybody knows my favorite notion, my mate Jack.
I call mine Jack now too because of you calling him Jack. I had to use him the other day because or something I was working on, and I'm like, oh man, I did that wrong. Let me go get my friend Jack, and I started laughing because you call him Jack.
I got it from somebody else. I forget who I stole it from, but yeah, like I'll be sitting there sewing, and I'll be like, Jack, and Amanda already knows. She's like, oh well, I know what happened now.
Come spend some time with me, Jack. We have a project to do.
Sometimes I got to pay him overtime. So we talked about the least favorite thing in the quilting process. Let's talk about what your favorite part is.
Putting it together.
Okay.
Taking the pieces, looking at the pattern, because I'm a very visual person. So that really gives me great joy when you take the pieces and you start sewing them together and you're like, oh, look, you find the pattern that you see, the picture of the pattern, you're seeing
Right.
it in you, and you're able to hold it and touch it. And yeah, that's pretty neat. Just that whole process of putting it together gives you great satisfaction.
And I think I'm the same, but I think my favorite part is when it's done. Like being able to
Yeah.
hold it up and see what you've been able to achieve.
That would be my second favorite.
I think you and I are just like flip-flopped, but it's very, very close. This can be as generic as you want, but who do you look up to within the quilting community?
Oh, geez. There's a mile long list. So when
that's why I said be generic if you want, like, because I've been asked this question and I'm like, I don't want to name names because I'm going to leave someone off and I'm going to, they got to feel bad. So
really I found Karen Brown with Just Get It Done Quilts. She was one of my first ones that I started watching, and she taught me a lot. But there's so many that are in our little local community that I've been watching, and maybe I shouldn't name everybody because I would be afraid I would forget somebody. But one of them is Becca with Sew Becca. She my sister-in-law actually told me about her. She's like, have you checked out Becca with Sew Becca? And I'm like, no, who's that? And so we started watching her on Friday nights together. And so I've learned a lot from her. But
she's just a fantastic person. She's a great teacher. I mean, if you want to learn how to do a channel, you can do a lot worse than learning from her. I'm a huge fan of hers. I kind of stumbled across her. I think YouTube recommended it, fairly early into when I was starting the channel, and she's just blessed me in so many different ways.
Me too, and as well you have.
I do my part where I can. I like to help out. However I can.
It makes you feel good to be able to help out, however big or small the community.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. All right. Do you belong to a guild or an online group?
No. It would be our little groups on live streams that we do. but no, I'm not a part of an actual guild or I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think the closest thing I have to a guild would be our Discord group,
Yeah.
and then our little community. Like I talk to quite a few of the creators. I talk to you, and then Beth and Becca and Courtney and Donna, and yeah, the list goes on and on. Like we're all like our own little quasi group, I guess, as
Yeah.
well.
We have our own little online guild group.
And that's cool. I think it's great that we could connect in that way. Like these are people that we may never get to meet in real life, or, due to distance, or even if we do get to meet, wouldn't have met if had not been for this.
Right.
So, I think I just think it's great. Do you listen to anything in the background while you're quilting?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I just enjoy the peace and quiet. Sometimes I'll put a movie on my iPad and let it play. A lot of times I've got one of my favorite YouTuber creators on playing in the background, listen to one of their videos, maybe specifically about what I'm working on.
Right.
I reference videos so often. I was like, okay, how did they say I needed to, sew the half square triangle, and I'll go and Google it on YouTube and find it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do. I think a lot of us go to the YouTube channel because it's, especially if it's something we've watched before or something like that. I think it's just a great thing in the backgrounds to hear, because it's always something positive too. Like you can watch movies or TV sometimes and it's not always a happy story, whereas our quilting stories are always happy.
Exactly.
Even when Jack's involved, or the divorce lawyer, as he's also known as. Have you heard that one?
No.
I think it's Brandy from 100 Proof Quilter calls it the divorce lawyer because when you sew the two pieces of fabric together, you're marrying them, and then he pulls them apart.
Jack the lawyer.
Jack the divorce lawyer. So, and I tend to watch a lot of more YouTube videos, quilting videos. When I think when I started, it was more like Netflix and Hulu and that sort of thing there. But I've kind of progressed over to more of watching my friends as well because it gives me a chance to watch some of their videos because there's only so many hours in the day. So it's
Right.
kind of like double duty for me. Let's see. And then what does your craft space look like right now?
A mess.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's my answer too. I usually say it's a
Yeah.
hot mess.
It's a hot mess. I have my husband bought me a cobalt table because my sister-in-law had told me, because I was like, what do you use in your crafts area in your quilting room? And so she told me, and she has two of the tables, and so I was able to get one, and we got it at Home Depot, and it's called Cobalt, and it's wonderful because depending on how tall you are, I'm pretty tall, so we were able to get it at the right height so that I could put my cutting board on it. So my large cutting mat actually fits on there.
Oh,
and
nice.
and so that's where I kind of keep my I just made a video the other day about using recycling the fat quarter shop sew sampler boxes, and I used that to put my my little storage unit on there from that. And then I'll have my light there, and then some of my rulers and books I have on there. And then on the other side, then I have my Baby Lock Verb is the machine that I have, and
Okay.
my ironing board is close by.
Yep, that's
So,
neat. Yeah, mine's a hot mess too. I mean, I've got quilts and fabric and stuff all over the place. I mean,
his.
it's nice and clean between here and here, but if I turn the camera, it's not gonna be quite so pretty.
Yeah.
Um, so, but it is what it is. I think any of us that are working on something, we usually, tend to have stuff. To me, it's like part of the creative process is to have stuff all over the place.
Yeah. I like to have it organized, but then sometimes there's organization and a little bit of chaos.
Exactly. And then what is one of the silliest quilting mistakes you've ever made? This can mean one of two things. Either you haven't made any, or you've made so many you can't figure out which one's the worst one.
Well, with my daughter being in college, I made her some placemats to go in her dorm because she's in like an apartment style dorm.
Okay.
And I tried to make the placemats with some of the information from the school that she attends on there. And it was very elementary and didn't look that great. That's
She
about
probably
the
still
only thing. But she still uses them. She loves them because mom made them.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of this stuff is that we tend to be our own worst critics.
Mhm.
And what we think is a failure, someone else looks at and thinks it's the most beautiful thing in the world. I know I made a quilt for my mother-in-law years ago and tried the free motion, and I didn't realize you had to start in the center. And it was an absolute hot mess. Like, I cringe every time I see that quilt, but she loves it. So, and at the end of the day, as
'Cause
long
you
as the stuff that
her.
I make is loved, I don't care.
You made it for her, so it's important and it's special. It has,
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm the one that sees the mistakes. So, there's that. But we've just got a couple of fun, silly questions left to do. So, what I'd like to do is take an opportunity here to say to anyone in the audience that if you have any questions for Martha or I, this is pre-recorded, but we are here in the chat. Well, hopefully we are. If you have any questions for us, throw it in the chat, and we'll happily answer it while we go through these last few questions. So these are just some fun, silly questions, and just let me know. It's a kind of like an either or thing.
Okay.
Solids, when it comes to fabrics, do you prefer solids or prints?
Prince.
Okay. Flying geese or half square triangles?
Flying geese. No half square triangles, even though I love how they look. Yeah, they're hard to sew together. So I am getting some good experience with the Cotton Cuts mystery quilt, so that's helping a lot.
I used to be terrified of half square triangles. You and I talked about this a few days ago. I was terrified of half square triangles, but after making several quilts this year with them in there, I can do it all day long. It doesn't bother me one bit. Flying geese, are not my favorite, but it's probably because I've only made them a handful of times. So it's interesting that you have a different answer, but we are all different.
Right.
We know this one. Traditional piecing or FPP. I mean, you haven't tried FPP yet, so we can move on.
Traditional?
In the audience, do you guys prefer the traditional FPP? Let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear your answers to see if you're on the FPP train with Beth and Yvette and everybody else, or if you're on the traditional bus with me.
And me.
All right, machine binding or hand binding?
Machine binding. I haven't tried hand binding yet.
Me either. Now, that's where I'm going to get in trouble with my show quilts, because you're supposed to hand bind those.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, apparently you get points taken off if you machine bind.
I didn't know that.
Uh-huh. And I'm like, if I hand bind, it's going to look like a 2-year-old gorilla did it. So I was like, I'd rather take the deduction for machine binding it than trying to hand bind it. So yeah, if you ever show a quilt, apparently you're supposed to hand bind it. But I like to buck the rules when I can. So, but yeah, I've never tried hand binding, but maybe one day. I know Courtney from Pieces Love and Quilting's trying to encourage me to try hand stitching and hand binding, and she's willing to teach me. So maybe in the very near future we'll give that a go. Machine quilting or hand quilting? I guess your machine there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I can have a pretty, decent sized throat on the Baby Lock Verb. So, but, trying to machine quilt the t-shirt quilt, that was challenging for sure. Because
Yeah,
it's, it being t-shirt material, it was very heavy and very thick.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of trying to finish the quilt top for a king size t-shirt quilt for our bed, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to attempt to quilt that puppy by myself or if I'm going to send it off to one of my long-arming friends to do for me. I've already talked to someone about that in case I need to go with choice two.
I would suggest go ahead and send it send it off to the long arm friend. Say,
Yeah,
hey, take
I'm
care of
so
this.
I'm so stubborn. Like I want to do it myself. So it's like,
I, I understand that completely. I'm stubborn too.
yeah. I mean, I'll just do stitch in the ditch like I normally do. But we'll see. Stay tuned, and we'll see what I ultimately decide. But I'm waiting for Finley to stop chewing holes and stuff. She actually got to one of my quilts yesterday. So yeah, little dog's in trouble. If anyone wants to buy a sweet little 18-month-old puppy, I'm just kidding. But yeah, she knew she was in trouble when I saw her do it. So
Maybe she needs her
um,
own quilt.
sorry.
Maybe she needs her own quilt.
Who knows? She was just having a moment. So yeah, but
It's
yeah,
like, yeah, I want my own quilt. I'm going to chew on yours instead.
it was one my sister made me, which makes me even more sad. But
Oh,
thankfully it's only a small hole, and there should be a way. I haven't told her that either. So hopefully, Shelley, you haven't seen this yet. Um, we'll see what I'll patch it with something. It's just a small hole, so it's not anything huge. Thankfully, it's not irreparable. When it comes to basting, do you use pin based or spray based?
pin base.
Okay,
Based.
me too. Yeah. I think I tried the spray basting once. It cost a lot of money and it didn't really work. So I was like, yeah, we're not doing this a second time.
Yeah. No, I think that I'm afraid of the aerosol can, just the smell that it might be too overwhelming. Yeah.
Make it smell good like roses or chocolate or something nice, but it's got that disgusting chemical smell. So yeah, I'll sit there and pin baste all day long. It's fine.
And I like
Uh,
that have the little, I don't have one handy, but it's got the little, it's not just a straight pin
yeah, the curves.
with that curve to it. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I've got a mix. I've got some straight pins. I bought those when I first started quilting, and then um,
And then you learn the better pin.
yeah, I went with a better pin. This is the
Yes,
curved one.
I love those. Those are wonderful. And
Yeah.
there's, yeah, they just are so much easier to use.
Oh, they are. Yeah. If you can afford to go out and buy 100 or two of them, definitely do so because they are, like Martha's saying, a whole lot easier than the other ones. But the straight pins will work if you don't have anything else. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I just grab whatever I grab. So and a couple more questions real quick. Is football or baseball?
Baseball.
Good answer. I like that.
I love baseball.
Me too. And which team?
The St. Louis Cardinals.
Right, okay, very good.
Yeah.
I have no
But
problem with that.
I will watch football when I go to see my daughter at the college, because she's in the marching band at college.
Right.
And so, I'm really there to watch her, not the football game.
Yeah, I'm not an American football fan. I enjoy rugby because that's what I grew up on. But yeah, I've never really gotten into the whole football thing. But I know a lot of people do.
That
Um,
and basketball. Those are my two, the baseball and the basketball. I love those.
basketball. Yeah, basketball for fun. Like it's not one of my favorites, but I've watched I watch basketball on occasion, and I do enjoy it, especially live in person. I think it's a lot of fun to watch in person, more so than on TV. Kind of feel that way with ice hockey as well.
Yeah.
And then chocolate or candy?
Dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. Okay.
Mhm. But I like candy too. So I like both.
All right.
I think we have a sweet tooth. I have to be careful.
Yeah, don't we all? And then Coke or Pepsi?
Grew up on Pepsi, but I love Coca-Cola.
I don't really notice a difference between the two. I mean, I'm probably one of those weirdos.
Well, I remember when I was a teenager, they had made this clear Pepsi. Does anybody else remember clear
Uh-huh.
Pepsi?
Yes.
And I loved that growing up, but then they discontinued it and stopped making it. So I didn't have a Coca-Cola product until I, started my first job, and they had Coca-Cola there. And I'm like, oh, I like this better than Pepsi. Now Pepsi tastes completely different than it did when I was a teenager.
Yeah. And it's different in different parts of the world too. Like if you go, like, I guess you've seen probably the Mexican stuff that comes up in the bottles.
Yes, those are really good because they're not made with the high fructose corn syrup. They're made with actually real cane sugar, and there's a definite different taste, and I like them much better.
Yeah, my favorite Coke, I think, would be the one I had in Nicaragua, which is a country in Central America between Costa Rica and Honduras. And it was the real sugar, and it was not nearly as carbonated.
Really?
Yeah,
I
it
wonder.
wasn't. It's just how they make it down there. Like it's the same basic, like the same sort of taste as like the Mexican stuff, but it's not flat, but it's only lightly carbonated, and it was great.
Huh. I have a guy that I work with. He likes to drink his sodas flat.
Yeah, no, I don't like mine flat, but yeah, this was maybe halfway as carbonated, maybe a little less. It was very interesting, but it was really, really good. Like that was one of my favorite parts about being down there was enjoying a Coke from the Coke guy.
Well,
So
maybe, yeah, maybe just using less carbonation, the carbonation product itself, they can by cutting it down, they can use it a lot longer. They don't run out of it as quickly. So
probably, I don't know, but that's how they made it down there, and it was really good.
yeah, a cost saving.
Yeah. So, but that pretty much brings us to an end to our interview. I'd like to thank you, Martha, for joining me today, and I thank you as the audience for bearing with us today. It's been a little unusual doing this pre-recorded because I haven't done this before. As an interview, I've done obviously my podcasts are pre-recorded each week and edited, but this is something new. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was a fun experience, and definitely, especially if you came in late, Martha is one of our newer content creators here on YouTube. So definitely check out her videos, her channel. We'll have the link in the description, and I'll throw it in the chat right now if I haven't already done so. And definitely show her some love, and definitely check out her videos because she's doing a great job. And I really do see good things with her channel going forwards because she has the love and desire to do well with this.
Thank
So I hope
you.
you all have a great day. Thank you once again for joining us. And my podcast should be going out in, depending on how long this is, I don't know what time it is now. If it hasn't gone out already, it's going to be going out any minute. So you'll have even more fun with the guy who sews in the next little bit. You'll have a great day. Have a great, thank you. Bye.
Bye.